Before we open this file, a very necessary warning. The narrative we're about to enter involves extreme physical torture, sexual deviance, and the digital recording of a human being's final moments. The details regarding the murder at the Midtown Marriott and the disposal of bodies in an Alaskan crawl space are profoundly disturbing. This content is intended for mature audiences only, and listener discretion is mandatory. Not even advised, it's mandatory. If you are sensitive to the exploitation of vulnerable populations, turn back now. Welcome to High Frights. There is a specific type of isolation that only Alaska can provide. It's a land of vast beauty, but it's also a land of shadows where people can disappear into the tundra without a trace. Usually the monsters here are the elements, the cold, distance, bears. But in 2019, Anchorage learned that there's a different kind of predator that had immigrated to the last frontier. A man who didn't just kill, but curated his crimes. A man who turned a hotel room into a snuff film set and a crawl space into a trophy room. Before we even hop into this, I got the glass ready. Gotta pack a bowl and get some of this quote unquote Alaskan Thunder going. Yeah, because honestly, we kind of need something before we get into this.
Seems like one of those cases.
Yeah.
Cases.
Oh, Jesus.
Very
True. And I'm not doing it solo this time. I have Chaotic with me, my lovely, lovely husband.
Hello.
Oh, jeez. Sorry. Need to have a sip of it. Oh.
Oh boy.
Yeah, mine's packed a little too much. Oh, sorry. Now that the smoke is thick, the mind is sharp. Today, the archives revealed a digital trail of a monster and the incredible stroke of luck that brought him down. The file is open. Now let's begin. To understand the sheer depravity of Ryan Stephen Smith, we have to look at how he was caught. It wasn't through DNA, and it wasn't through any witness, but it was through a digital ghost. A woman, vulnerable, living on the streets of Anchorage, found a small SD card lying in the dirt. She didn't know that she had just picked up the physical copy of a nightmare. When she played the files, she didn't find any personal photos. She found a folder titled Murder at the Midtown Marriott. She saw a woman, later identified as Kathleen Henry, being brutally tortured on a blue hotel carpet. She heard a voice, cold, detached, and with a distinct South African accent, mocking the victim. "My hand's getting tired," the voice said as it tightened around Kathleen's throat. The woman took the card to the police, and the digital archive of the serial killer was finally in the hands of the law. In the archives of digital evidence, the Smith videos are among one of the most graphic ever recovered. This wasn't a crime of passion, but it was a crime of production. Smith recorded himself strangling Kathleen in room 332 in the Anchorage Marriott. video shows the calculated nature of the erasure. Apologies. Smith would stop strangling her just before she lost consciousness. He would let her gasp for air, but then would begin again. He was practicing the ultimate form of control. He spoke to her not as a human, but as a prop. Just die, he told her. Excuse me. The psychology is clear. Smith was a collector. He wanted to be able to relive the moment he took a life. He caught the light leaving her eyes in high definition. We must sit with the fact that without the dropped SD card, this video would have stayed in Smith's pocket, a private souvenir of a very public murder. The investigation moved with lightning speed once the SD card was secured. Detectives recognized the accent. Brian Stephen Smith was a South African immigrant who had married an American woman and settled into a seemingly mundane life in Alaska. During his interrogation, Smith did something that shocked even the veteran investigators. He didn't just admit to the Marriott murder, he offered up a second name. I'm gonna butcher the second name, so I do apologize in advance. Veronica Abduchuk. Abouchuk. There we go. Veronica had been missing since 2017. She was a 52-year-old Alaskan Native woman. Smith admitted that he picked her up, taken her to his home, and when she refused to take a shower, he shot her in the head. He told them where the body was. He'd hidden her in a crawlspace before eventually dumping her remains along the Old Glen Highway. He was giving them a map to his own graveyard. Now, when we look at Brian Stephen Smith through the lens of forensic psychology, we see a textbook example of a sexual sadist with a very high degree of narcissistic entitlement. In the archives of criminal profiling, Smith fits the organized/non-social mold. He was married, he had a job, and this is what we call the mask of sanity. To his neighbors, he was just a guy with a thick accent, but internally, Smith was operating on a whole different frequency. The use of the camera is the psychology of the use of a camera is a psychological. Apologies, I'm a little too elevated at the moment. Psychological smoking gun. For Smith, the act of killing wasn't about the termination of life, but it was about the total ownership of narrative. By filming his crimes, he was creating a permanent archive of his own perceived power. In his mind, he wasn't a killer in a hotel room, he was a god with a lens. Now, in the files of 2024 and 2026, show that Brian Smith, the case wasn't just a trial, it was a catalyst for the legislative revolution. The public outcry led to what advocates call the Henry Aubchuk, I believe that's pronounced, Justice Initiative. This shift fundamentally changed three things in Alaska. One, the mandatory cold case funding, which was dedicated to task forces for, the ritual and indigenous disappearances that were established. Two, the digital evidence reform, which laws were clarified to protect the Good Samaritan discoveries of, violent crime evidence to ensure that technicalities can't shield any monsters or anyone. And then three, the vulnerability enchantment. Yes, that's what it's called. The vulnerability enchantment. Sentencing guidelines were updated to increase mandatory minimums if a perpetrator selectively targets a victim based on their status of vulnerability, such as homelessness, elderly, whatever you name it, sick or ill, disabled. Yeah, the 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 quote unquote crawlspace killer tried to exploit these blind spots of Alaska, but he ended up forcing the state to shine a floodlight directly at them. Honestly, I'm sad that the bowl's empty and the smoke's starting to clear. And we've looked at a man who tried to hide his soul into a crawl space. We looked at the women who tried to erase and he tried to erase, and the system he tried to outsmart. Brian Steven Smith is now a case study in the tourist predator individuals who moved to remote locations, believing that the local authorities are ill-equipped to handle them. He thought he was a director of death, but instead he became a catalyst for a waking giant. Alaska is different now. The driveway, the hotel rooms, and the crawl space are no longer safe havens for the wicked. Thanks for sticking through the deep end with me and Chaotic. This was a heavy session, but the archives don't lie. Take care of your mental health after this. Go for a walk, hydrate, look at the stars, do whatever you gotta do. Hey, if you want to take another bolt, take another bolt. Stay safe, stay lifted, and always keep your eyes on the light. This has been High Frights, and have a good night. Bye.